We've got a really, really fascinating afternoon ahead of us. We've been hearing a lot about how bullish the market is across Africa and how this is really the place to be when it comes to growth in the industry. So we're going to start with some facts and figures. David Nyamasvisva is a senior business development executive at Euromonitor, and he's going to kick off this afternoon by running us through trends in tourism, specifically in Sub-Saharan Africa. So if I could ask David to come up to the stage now. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Name is David Nyamasvisva. It's a bit of a tongue twister. I'm originally from Zimbabwe, but currently based in Cape Town. I work for Euromonitor International. And today I'm just going to talk to you about some of our findings within the travel and tourism industry. I am one of the senior consultants there, and essentially my role is to connect with executives across industries such as yours, just essentially helping you to leverage our research to identify opportunities, but also to mitigate certain risks. So just to go into the presentation, just a little bit about our business. We are a strategic market research provider, and we offer two types of research essentially. So we've got syndicated market research, which spans across 30 consumer-facing industries and service sectors. And the other division of our business speaks to more consulting, which is more custom research projects. But that is all made possible by the fact that we have got quite an expansive network of analysts. And if I can put that into perspective for you, we are speaking of over 1,200 full-time Euromonitor analysts who live as consumers in the markets that they research. That also allows us to get not just a complete view of the local marketplace, but also the global view and state of affairs. We also allow our clients to get the full cross-comparability across different data sets, but also across different markets. So typically our expertise or the clients that we work with have specific questions around consumer trends and lifestyles, companies and brand performances, product categories, as well as distribution channels where relevant, production and supply chain, as well as economics and forecasting. So we typically work also with clients across the travel and tourism industry, and they use our research to fully understand the operating environment and the industry dynamics, as well as international markets. And this really helps them to, identify key areas of opportunity, but also refine their business efforts in existing, but also in new markets. All right, so just speaking to some of the travel flows. So this really is, a global heat map, which offers you a global outlook of the inbound arrivals, as well as a focus on Sub-Saharan Africa. So if you look on the top right corner there, you will see globally, inbound receipts totaled 1.5 trillion USD. That is a lot. And predominantly that's across the Western Europe, as well as Asia Pacific region. If you take a closer look at the Sub-Saharan Africa region, countries with a darker shade of blue had inbound receipts of between 4.5 billion USD and 25 billion US dollars. So in this case, South Africa was leading the pack with about 10.7 billion, followed by Tanzania with 2.4 billion, and Kenya at 2.2 billion. All right, if we take a closer look at the Sub-Saharan Africa region, despite economic challenges, we've also found that tourist inflows actually picked up in pace in terms of year-on-year growth, climbing to an estimated 7.1% growth in 2017 to reach just under 30 billion trips from about 28 billion trips in 2013. So countries that I've included in this graph include South Africa, Kenya, Nigeria, Mozambique, Cameroon, Mauritius, Tanzania, which account for about 70% we found of the inbound trips into Sub-Saharan Africa. All right, looking at some of the trends that are driving tourism and travel, we found that the revision of visa regulations has boosted inbound receipts in some of the markets. So if we look, we found that some governments have actually relaxed the visa regulations, and this has really helped, countries' tourism industry to recover. For example, in South Africa, they've introduced a 90-day free visitors visa In Kenya, we have the pre-approved electronic visa. And these are some of the systems that make it less of a hassle to travel to some of these countries. And we've also found that really aggressive brand marketing campaigns, which have been spearheaded by the tourism boards, as well as the introduction of new and increased direct air connectivity to and from major overseas markets, have also resulted in increased inbound activity. Secondly, we've found that the rising internet penetration, improving internet infrastructure, as well as expansion of online platforms and increasing number of tech-savvy consumers are really some of the key factors that have stimulated really rapid growth of online travel sales to residents within the region. Also more affordable smartphones and increased usage of internet-enabled devices such as tablets, personal computers also continue to boost online travel sales during the review period. And we have then since found that industry players across the board have continued to expand their presence online as well. We've also witnessed increased air connectivity, the introduction of new routes, as well as capacity increases and code-sharing partnerships. So many airlines really continue to expand their routes, increase capacity. For example, the national carrier here in Kenya, Kenya Airways, introduced flights to destinations such as South Africa, Mauritius, Zambia, Amsterdam, and France over the review period. So with all of these, among other factors considered, the outlook for inbound arrivals into the region is expected to grow over the forecast period. Okay, also seeing that tourism continues to be a key contributor to GDP, we found that receipts from tourism in 2017 alone amounted to over $30 billion and contributed close to 3% towards the region's GDP. So we also see countries like Kenya, Tanzania, and Namibia had the highest percentage contribution to GDP from tourism, seeing well between 10 and 24.9% contribution. Sorry. And then we've also found that there's quite a lot of emphasis now on domestic tourism across the region. So we found that on a global scale, on average, domestic travel expenditure per person stood at about $338 in 2017. In Sub-Saharan Africa, that was about $60.6, which was actually up from 50.9 from 2012. So we've actually found that despite increasing inbound arrivals, international arrivals to the region, travel and tourism in the region continues to benefit a lot from increasing focus on domestic tourism. And this trend really is a result of a lot of collaboration between tourism boards and ministries, which are seeking to entice local people to travel a lot more, allowing them to experience what their country really has to offer. We've also seen the introduction of products for local travelers and campaigns such as Magical Kenya, here locally, Tembea Kenya, Short Lift, which is in South Africa, and Okoa Holiday are really some of the noteworthy examples. And we've seen a lot of packages now coming to play, similar to one by Bonfire Adventures, which really allows you to travel or go on vacation, but pay later. So this is really driving a lot of domestic tourism we've seen across the region as well. But we've also found that there's still a general perception that travel is really expensive and sometimes unnecessary. But I think initiatives such as this really, and more exposure to information about travel packages, is seeing this perception really change very fast. Another finding is that cities are becoming fast at the forefront of tourism and innovation. So cities are being positioned as, the leader or the forefront of tourism growth. And we see that new travel trends are really starting to become born out of cities in Africa. Therefore, increasing focus on individualized city branding and, to travelers seeking unique, engaging, authentic experiences is another trend that we've really picked up. So consumers are facing or focusing on different experiences in different cities, and more partnerships are starting to be formed by players in retail, entertainment, accommodation, passenger transport, air connectivity, as well as meetings, incentives, conferences, and events to attract a lot more visitors to specific cities. We've also seen a lot of loyalty programs coming to play where consumers can actually earn discounts or earn points which they can then use or convert to discounts on travel, accommodation, and some events, etc. Right, we've also seen quite a lot of diversification of tourism products. So obviously, while tourism in the region is mostly driven by natural tourism, there's a lot of room for improvement in protecting, valuing, and communicating cultural richness. So we found that in several African countries, there are numerous cultural sites and intangible expressions that could be better leveraged and combined with rich natural capital available. So some other tourist avenues really to consider are, your ecotourism, religious tourism, cultural tourism. You've got your health, entertainment, adventure beaches, and as well as our MICE, which is our meetings, incentives, conferences, and events. Okay, just going into the lodging industry a little bit. We've actually found that according to the New World Wealth Report, the number of millionaires visiting the Sub-Saharan Africa region actually continues to increase. And by millionaires, I'm referring to individuals with a net worth of over 10 million. And we actually found that South Africa had over 15,000 millionaire visitors. Kenya and Botswana had just over 4,000 millionaire visitors. And actually, we found that hotels accounted actually for 45% of overall lodging value sales. And this category is really driven by the presence of international hotel chains, as well as some emerging local players as well. So we find that in terms of value growth, super luxury actually witnessed 8.3% growth on a year-on-year basis compared to the 2.6% growth by luxury hotels. So super luxury really refers to accommodation with a 6-star or more rating, and luxury would be 5-star rating as well. So we've actually also seen that South Africa, Nigeria, and Kenya are expected to register strong growth in luxury hotels due to their popularity with luxury travelers. And also many global hotel chains are seeking to tap into, the growing number of these luxury tourists. Nigeria's Lagos city is actually expected to see substantial investment in the lodging category, particularly in the luxury hotel segment. And a report by Hotel Partners in Africa indicates that Nigeria has the most significant hotel market in the West Africa region, with over 41 hotels spread out across 9 cities and operated by 14 hotel companies. In South Africa, one other notable international hotel group that's expanding quite aggressively into South Africa is the Radisson Hotel Group, which is where we're at now, which is really focused on expanding the Radisson Blue brand, which is really more targeted at guests who are in the luxury and upscale segment. And they're set to be the fastest growing hotel brand, having the largest number of hotels under construction in Africa. Short-term rentals. These are really shaking up the lodging industry, I think, on an African region. And we've seen that short-term rentals recorded the highest growth within lodging in terms of retail value sales in 2018. We found obviously players like Airbnb have really shaken up lodging. It is comparatively cheaper and offers more than just lodging facilities. Also in terms of convenience and a variety of options, as well as unique experiences which they're also offering to consumers. So even though I was seeing an increase in expansion of luxury hotels and upscale hotels in the country, or the region rather, many of the younger generation prefer these, or the ones that we classify as millennials rather, are putting travel first, and they're really looking at saving money, but also a lot more experiences when it comes to traveling. So we'll find that Airbnb has actually identified this need and added further functionality to their platform in 2017 called Trips, where guests can actually look and book a variety of tours and events along with standard accommodation booking function. So in closing, the mobile nature of travel, it is particularly well placed to explore a lot of digital possibilities permitted by online booking, payments, as well as review and price comparison platforms. And we find that businesses are offering more optimized mobile experiences, which will only serve to enhance uptake of mobile travel sales in the future. Growth in this category will benefit also not just from prevailing browsing for travel inspiration, but also a lot more information and exposure to experiences that our consumers are seeing across the board. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
We were talking to Pierre yesterday, and he was saying, I just want to pick up on what you were saying about millennials, and he was saying that a lot of them are looking to lifestyle brands. Where are you seeing most of those when you look at the across the continent?
South Africa for one, Kenya, Nigeria. I think there's a lot of influence from global trends that we're picking up from the TV, from the internet, and we're seeing that a lot of those global trends are filtering down to the local level. So predominantly those markets, we're seeing quite a lot of penetration of those brands.
So when you're looking at the continent as a whole, maybe I'll just come up there and sit up there with you. When you're looking at the continent as a whole, technology, is it predominantly in South Africa where it's being driven, or where are you seeing the most tech innovation?
Yeah, Cape Town specifically as well. We've seen there's a lot of tech startups, so there's a lot of innovation in that space. And I think really there's a lot of talent there as well in terms of technological innovations. So we're really starting to see a lot of penetration from Cape Town, but also just the wider South African region. I think Nigeria as well. And I think the other thing that really makes this possible is the fact, as I said earlier, that there's a lot more players that are involved in the actual portable devices that you can actually connect to the internet. So I don't necessarily have to have an iPhone 10 for me to actually access the internet to see what options are out there. I can have a cheap smartphone as long as I can connect to the internet, and there's a huge penetration of those mobile phones in Africa. So I think starting from South Africa, Nigeria, Kenya, we're really starting to see a lot of penetration of that as well.
And is it across the board how people are booking their hotels, how they're finding their hotels, and then once they go into the hotels, their experience there?
So I think, yeah, definitely they look a lot more online, so they look to see what the reviews are, what are people saying about the hotel. Pictures play a very, very important role as well. I know when I'm booking a hotel, the first thing I want to look at is what does the place actually look like, what do the rooms look like. So just getting as much information online is becoming a lot more important. In terms of actually booking and paying online, I think we're still finding a bit of resistance from that. I think some people just have some trust issues around that, but I think really starting to see people becoming more flexible towards that. I think as well the more aggressive marketing campaigns by some of the players in the digital space are really driving a lot of that message.
What are some of the most successful aggressive marketing campaigns that we've seen?
I think definitely we've seen with Airbnb, they've also started to include some AI technology in that as well, which really speaks to just really getting into your mind and understanding what do you typically look for when you're online, and when you're looking at travel and hospitality related information, and really starting to get more targeted with their marketing. So when you're browsing online or you're on Skype, on LinkedIn, you'll see a pop-up and already says you're looking at this and that, why don't you consider this option? If you're looking at this market here, if you could just tell us your name and where you're from, please.
Hi, thank you. Jerry Byrne from Archipelago International, Indonesian hotel chain. David, on one of your slides there, you staying on the subject of Airbnb, there seems to be a downward trend since 2015 on the slide. Is that correct?
So for Airbnb,
the impact on the market. You had a slide there that said Airbnb had shaken up the market, but from the slide, the black line was Airbnb, and it was going down from 2015. Is that correct, or? Surely
maybe let's just have a look real quick.
Can we get the slideshow back up and then go back to that slide? Did you know which one it was?
Yeah, so...
Sasha, can we get the slides put back up, please? Thanks. There we go.
All right. Okay, so this is a comparison of short-term rentals and hotels. So short-term rentals would be in blue. Yep. So that includes players like Airbnb. So this is a year-on-year percentage growth. So we have seen a decline from 2015, but I think that just speaks to the base. So obviously, the bigger the growth, the bigger the base becomes, and therefore the year-on-year growth percentage might not necessarily continue to increase. Yeah.
How do traditional players, how are they competing with Airbnb? If you have a huge Airbnb market in a city, how do hotels compete with that?
I think it really speaks a lot to promotional offers, and I think a lot of the partnerships that we're starting to see with, I know in South Africa we have Discovery Vitality, so they have a lot of partnerships where they're starting to incentivize consumers to stay in their hotel, so you get some points, you get a discount, and they're really incentivizing as well in terms of during your stay. And yesterday we were talking about sustainability, and just during your stay, if you can hang your towel, for example, and not get it washed, and just become a more sustainable guest, they're really starting to incentivize a lot more on that. We're really also seeing, I think, big partnerships with retailers. So if I go and shop at a Pick and Pay or Checkers in South Africa, you can actually earn points from that using a smart shopper card, which you can convert. So I think just that. But I mean, I think again also hotels speak a lot more to the more upmarket consumer. So we still find that there's still quite a lot of potential or opportunity in that particular space.
It's interesting what you say about whether you can hang your towel up rather than send it to be washed again. I mean, how important is that, have you found, when people are booking hotels, the sustainability aspect of the hotel, and whether it is just purely lip service, or is it if it is actually policy that's in place that's making a difference?
I think generally we're starting to see a trend towards that. I know especially in Cape Town, where we had a water crisis, people really were starting to be more responsible about, whether they get their towels sent for laundry and, how much water they use and things like that. But also I think just generally moving more towards a greener society. I think the message is becoming louder and louder. And just from the discussion yesterday as well around, greener buildings and things like that, I think it's something that could definitely start making a lot of noise in the industry.
Let's talk about the luxury market. Can you just explain again how the luxury market is positioned across the continent?
Mm-hmm. So just go back over there. Yeah, so we were basically saying, so there's a lot of millionaire visitors. So just from across the globe, just in terms of inbound arrivals, we're seeing a lot of visitors, that are more upscale. And I know in Cape Town, I'll keep referring to Cape Town because I'm from there, so I've seen that on the ground. But we found, areas like Camps Bay, there's a lot of, really all these rich people that are coming through, either just for holiday, for vacation with their family, and they're spending quite a lot of money. And that's really a market that a lot of international hotel players are targeting as well. But also just Airbnb, in terms of the more upmarket houses there, are also, tapping into that opportunity.
Okay, what about in West Africa, the luxury market?
Nigeria, definitely Lagos. Yeah, there's a lot of that. Just locals, but also internationals who are coming into the space as well are really making or shaking up the industry in that space, because there's also a thing of perception. So sometimes I might not necessarily afford the 5-star hotel, but if I can go there, check in there for a night, post it all over Instagram, and look like I've got a lot of money, then that's incentive enough for me. So we're seeing a lot of that as well.
Let's talk about social media. Go back to marketing, because the CS for Tourism and Wildlife has said that here, specifically in Kenya, they're going to invest a lot in that sort of marketing, in trying to get millennials on board. How successful have they been so far, and what do they need to do to capture that market?
I think they've been very successful. I mean, if you think about just how much social media has penetrated our day-to-day lives. On average, I've got this reader on my phone that tracks how many hours I spend on Instagram or on Facebook.
How many hours do you spend? I don't want that app.
So yesterday was about 3.5 hours in total, just on Instagram, which is quite a lot. But I think that's because I was posting a lot from all my tourist activities. But I think we're really seeing a lot of players really moving into the social media space, and that's really something that they should be tapping a lot more into, because that's where people get a lot of information from, reviews, recommendations and things like that. So definitely big opportunity in social media.
Okay, well, thank you so much, David.
Awesome.
It's so difficult. You're going to say your last name.
Yamashisha. Everyone say. Yeah.
We have one. We keep it very brief because we're going to start the next session.
Sorry, just very quickly. Have you got any idea or stats on geographical representation in terms of those arrivals, particularly the millionaire high-end arrivals, question one? And then question two, have you got any sort of data on the percentage split between domestic and international tourism in the region?
We do. I don't have them on me, but they're on my laptop. We can maybe meet afterwards and I can show you in our portal, if that's okay. All right.
Okay. Thank you so much, David.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, everyone.